Attack on Titan is a story about remembering the dead. Except that no one actually does. At least, not as human beings. Within the Survey Corps, the fallen soldiers are not remembered as people. The scouts don't remember their hobbies or the futures they might have had, and there are no monuments with their name on them. Rather, the memory comes in the form of how they die. Just before we continue though, a major spoiler warning for Attack on Titan, Clair Obscur, and Unbeatable. Go play and watch them if you haven't. In Attack on Titan, by dedicating their heart to humanity and dying on the battlefield, the scouts believe that their brutal passing is a sacrifice. Their deaths aren't grieved, they are weaponized. They are part of a larger narrative told by Erwin in order to recruit new scouts. A narrative not about survival, but about meaning. Because death is the norm for the scouts. Of those who sign up, most will die within 4 years of service. So instead, the scouts offer purpose. They tell recruits that their lives hold meaning in this cruel world, that their death will have significance for the rest of humanity. Their proof is the legacy of the fallen. Those who have given their lives are used as an example. Humanity only got this far because of them. They are also an obligation to fulfill. Past sacrifices only matter because the living continue to follow in their lead. In that same breath, the memory of the fallen is a promise, a belief that the sacrifices now will be given meaning by the next group of scouts charging to their death. Their memory is both an anchor to the past and a fuel for the future, called upon to fill the whole of death with a burst of fire. It lasts only for short moments, but in those moments, that fire is able to turn even the greatest cowards into heroes. It is a lie so powerful that it works even on a leader who tells it. Erwin Smith is the commander of the Scouts, and through his strategic brilliance, fearless leadership, and willingness to sacrifice anything for humanity, he is perhaps the most important part of the Scouts' progress. But in the final episodes leading up to his charge, we find out Erwin's real motivation. Instead of the good of humanity, it is his childhood desire to prove his father's theory right. For all these years, this is the dream that lays beneath the narrative. And as he faces his oncoming fate, his dream closer than ever, he stands on a mountain of corpses. Their broken families and forgotten passions shaping the view. The cost is unspeakable, an invisible debt on all of humanity's progress. Though, however large the mountain, the Scout Regiment isn't literally walking on the bodies of previous soldiers. That privilege is reserved for the expeditions in Clair Obscur. Where memory for the Scouts is a tool, memory in Clair Obscur is a forceful reminder of the futility of the mission. Similarly to AOT, Clair Obscur's world is defined by death. From its very first scene, we are thrown into a city with a doomsday clock. A timer started 67 years ago when the painters appeared, and created an age limit for everyone in Lumiere. Every year since, on the day of the Gommage, this limit has gone down by 1, fading out everyone above that age. This deadline on life creates an overwhelming presence surrounding every single decision. Will you have children who will inevitably be orphans? Will you make friends who have to grieve when it's your time? Will you accept that time when it comes? Or will you try to fight back? For some, the answer to that is yes. In an attempt to stop the cycle, Lumiere sent out missions to kill the Paintress. But with every passing failure, the annual expeditions saw less and less volunteers. At this point in time, they exist for political morale more than anything else, even called a bloodless guillotine by one of the main organizers. One look at the crew proves this sentiment right. Expedition 33 is a group that has all but given up. They are 32 years old, and in the face of their little future left, the impossible quest seems like the only meaningful possibility. This is not the heroic effort of the scouts. It's a glorified suicide mission, doomed from the moment they set sail for the continent. What makes this all the worse is that the party includes Maelleee. And Maelleee is only 16, but already sees no point in continuing her life on Lumiere. With her parents already deceased, and her current guardian Gustav joining this expedition, there is only desperation left on the island. As it turns out, however, the continent offers no further warmth. Within minutes of arriving, all but the entire party is killed. On Lumiere, death is clean, the bodies of the Gamage instantly dispersed into fleeting petals. On the continent, however, corpses do not decay. As Gustav makes his way through the island, alongside the fantasy-esque beauty, he is welcomed by a legion of corpses. Trees made of the deceased, bodies splayed on the walls, human remains making up the very ground that's walked on. This entire world is stained with death. It is the reality of 66 years of failed quests, eternally plastered on the land of the continent. It is a reality that the expeditioners are aware of. So instead of Attack on Titans, dedicate your heart. In Clair Obscur, they say, when one falls, we continue. And for those who come after. They are simple mantras created to cope with the near certain death incoming, by convincing you someone will follow and make good use of what you did with your life. They are also deeply dehumanizing, treating people's lives as a means to an end. And as you start to explore the continent, the world's mechanics reflect this. You don't just walk over the bodies, you actively raid their equipment. As you find pixels to level up in battle, chroma to purchase weapons, your party oohs and ahs.
Great.
The remains of the human lives worth nothing more than the possessions they left behind. Through a sea of death, the expeditioner sees sacrifices, a path paved for them to walk. Until, inevitably, another body is added to the pile. Gustav dies. Dead before he could see the marvels of this world. Dead before achieving his goal of defeating the Paintress. Dead before you wanted him to be. And through this tragedy, the game forces you to reckon with the inhumanity of the mission. On one side, it shows you Maelleee, the girl who tried to escape her desperation, only to be met with the death of her brother. She's thrown back to the loneliness of Lumiere, the continent taking away the only belonging she had ever felt. On the other side, the game shows you Lune, not outwardly grieving, but stoically carrying on with the mission. Having been raised as her parents' research assistant, her whole life has been shaped by the quest to defeat the cycle. Whether by planning how to advance or writing journals for future crews, she embodies the brutal mantra she grew up with. When one falls, we continue. In some twisted way, the game's structure seems to agree with Lune. Because immediately after Gustav's death, Verso steps in to save Maelleee. and he's different to Gustav. He's supposedly from the first expedition, immortal because of a gift from the Paintress, having helped multiple previous crews, but also, he is the same. The fact he salvaged Gustav's tech, the way he fills the leadership role, even the way he looks. Verso seems to fill the Gustav-shaped hole. And more than just fill, as a better fighter, as a person who has lived on the continent for decades, he exceeds the absence. The game's mechanics suggest the worth of Gustav was his prowess in battle, and replacing him is as easy as learning some new skills. And it is almost correct. As you further explore the continent, Verso's knowledge is of immense help. But as soon as you get out of battle, Maellee's grief remains. Lune doesn't trust him like Gustav. Verso isn't Gustav. And while Protocol tells you he is a good replacement, that same Protocol finds a burial an act of needless mourning. When one falls, we continue. It's a mentality that has sent thousands to their death, but crumbles when faced with the simple, human reality of grief. As you arrive at the burial place, neatly along the road of progress, you find a graveyard, filled by people trying to give their loved ones a proper resting place. Even though Protocol denies it, even though progress is slowed, the feeling of grief overpowers any oath. Remembering the dead, the space they took up, hurts. It hurts to think about, and that pain slows progress. So you try not to. You try to remember them as a sacrifice. You try to forget how it feels. It is a mindset forced onto the expeditions in Clair Obscur by a world filled with death. But for some, this desire is tragically internal. A desire not just to suppress, but escape the feeling entirely. A desire confessed by the character of Quaver near the end of the game Unbeatable. In between the loud climax of the story, it's a quiet conversation between her and Beat, as Quaver talks about the loss of her mother, Eve, nearly 7 years ago. She talks about how she still misses her, how she can't stop thinking about her, about the pain associated with it, and how tired she is of it. She wishes to just be done with the grief, to forget how it feels, to not have it be everywhere she looks. It's an understandable exhaustion, a given for a child growing up without her parents. But to really understand the weight of this desire, we have to rewind a bit. Unbeatable is a game where music is illegal and you do crimes. But more than just a resistance piece, it's a story about two different ways of grieving, and two different ways of losing yourself. It revolves around these strange monsters called the Silence. From a literal perspective, they are holes in the world, actual nothingness given shape and a physical form by the feelings projected onto them. Born from the death of music, the Silence first appeared during Eve's final concert, when the fear of abandonment present in the stadium manifested the scary cop into accidentally shooting Eve. It is a moment in time that no one has moved past, perpetually creating these holes in the universe. One of the people still holding on to this moment is Quaver. The first thing she does in the game is take Beat to the same venue her mom died in, trying to honor her birthday by continuing where her story ended. This drive to follow in the footsteps of her mother shapes much of the game. As Quaver and Beat move through this authoritarian world, it goes beyond just continuing her mom's music. She watches tapes, listens to old recordings, and even goes as far as recreating old pictures. It is in these recreations that we see her desperate attempts to keep Eve alive. Quaver is not just remembering her mother, she is literally taking her place, trying to fill up the hole that her mom left with herself. She makes her mom survive through her own body. She wears her bow, sleeps in her old cabin, tries to copy her rockstar mentality, all the while trying to live her own life too. Quaver is carrying the life of two people. And that's exhausting. And it hurts because it doesn't actually bring her back. The camera you take these pictures with is a different resolution. In the years since the originals, props have moved, shops have closed down, and Quaver doesn't fit the whole of Eve. In Quaver's desperate attempts to bring her back, it only makes the fact that she's gone appear everywhere. Quaver is defined by an overwhelming presence of memory. In a direct parallel, Beat is defined by a gaping absence. They are two sides of the same coin. Instead of extensive tapes and memories and pictures, Beat only has these vague, faraway dreams for her past. Nothing more than a white space, populated only by disembodied voices and hazy memories of an identity that used to belong to her. Only after a long journey, with a lot of plot points I'm skipping over, does Beat confront her missing past. Through a rediscovery of her memories, we learn about her previous band, about the job she kept getting fired from, about the depression she was in, but most importantly, we learn about her mom. How the fight she had with cancer completely took over Beat's life. How the hospital visits, the looming fear of it getting worse, structured her days. We learn about the voicemail where her mom gave up, and what had happened with all that space in Beat's life. Because suddenly, there was nothing there to fill it. And with all the hardship she was facing, that nothingness became overwhelming. Already unable to carry her own life, she couldn't carry death as well. So she doesn't even think about her mom anymore. The emptiness where her mom used to be, swallowing her from the inside. Her memories, her sense of self-worth, of personhood, simply don't fit alongside the void within her. She is a hollowed out shell, a 99% match to the silence. Who has all but forgotten the person she loved most, who has all but forgotten herself. Unbeatable poses two ways of losing yourself. For Quaver, her way of remembering is self-destructive. For Beat, her avoidance is a form of self-erasure. Their two daughters, faced with the same tragedy, and where one lets it consume her, the other takes on an impossible act of resurrection. But what if Quaver's way of grieving actually worked? What if someone was ready to sacrifice everything, with the power to turn recollection into reality? To answer that question, we have to return to the continent. After the initial shock of Gustav's death has worn off, Expedition 33 eventually manages to kill the Paintress. The final battle is a loud, climactic ending to this impossible quest, as Lumiere is finally freed from its 6 decades of torment. But as the party returns, it's revealed that this freedom comes only in the form of more death. In an instant, every person in Lumiere is faded out of existence. Killing the Paintress caused a citywide gommage, everyone but Verso going up in smoke. And then you're pulled back. You wake up as Alicia de Sandre in a manor filled with paintings, in a city much closer to our reality. And as you start to explore this new world, you find Alicia's mother, Aline, stuck in a canvas that is the world of Lumiere. Lumiere, with all its fantasy beauty, with its gradient attacks, literally exists within a painting. Originally painted by a young Verso, it is the last remaining piece of his soul, created before he tragically passed away in a house fire. It is an artifact of his life, a physical representation of his memories. So, not wanting to live a life without her son, Aline buried herself in this world. She became the paintress, shaping the world to her view. She painted her family as if it was reality, painted Verso as if to refuse it. Just as he is a replacement for Gustav, the Verso we see on the continent is a replacement of the real Verso. He is a replica, unable to die because Aline couldn't handle losing him again. She drowns herself in the canvas, and in doing so, corrupts the final piece of Verso's life. Her husband, Renoir, seeing the slow death of his wife, tries desperately to make her see the truth of this world, eventually going as far as to try and destroy the canvas. Their fight has turned this beautiful world into a horrible battleground, perpetuating the cycle of grief. Alicia, this time as Maelleee, loses another brother. Lune loses her parents, Ciel her husband, and the people of Lumiere, their freedom. In reality too, does Aline's escapism tear their family apart. By hanging on to the memory of Verso, she only confirms the blame Alicia feels for his death. By putting her life at risk, Renoir is forced to choose between being there for his kids or watching his wife slowly kill herself. Aline's remembrance is more than just a prison. It's an abyss, trapping herself, her family, and the entire world of Lumiere in her grief. Where Beath created a void that consumed herself, Aline's void consumes an entire world. They are two distinct hells, born from the same unbearable pain. Whether you try to focus it on a distant goal, try to cling on to the memory, or not to think about it at all, the pain remains. In one way or another, the memory demands to be carried. And so, we return to the world of Attack on Titan, where there is one man who sees through it all. Captain Levi, humanity's strongest soldier, Erwin's right-hand man. He has been there since the start, has seen all the ups and downs of the scouts, and is the only one who knows the truth of Erwin's motivations. Through all the missions that he's participated in, he's seen hundreds of his people fall, in the name of humanity. It is a system, however grim it may be, that undeniably worked. Through the loss of his squad mates, his friends and family, the scouts were able to venture beyond the walls, reclaiming the world from the rule of the Titans. But as we've seen before, the meaning behind the death does not resolve its grief. And Levi, as the unkillable soldier, is plagued with an impossible amount of survivor's guilt. The constant battle doesn't allow him to properly mourn. He suppresses his own emotions, but doesn't try to forget. Rather, in complete defiance to Erwin and the scouts, Levi refuses to let the dead become something abstract. He remembers their names, he saves their patches, he actively refuses to mash the human lives into one grand idea of sacrifice. He sees their death as an unspeakable cost, a debt that could never be repaid, only honored by trying to make them the final sacrifice. It is only after the fighting comes to an end that he allows himself to feel. For the last time, he salutes the ghost of his fallen comrades. For the first time, they are not an obligation to fulfill, but friends that he has lost. He is finally able to remove the bandage of the wound, and a singular tear rolls down the cheek of the strongest soldier of humanity. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and checking out my